Thank you, everyone who has joined us on the call today. If you are new and you are seeing me for the first time, welcome. My name is April Rozzo. I'm one of the registered dietitians with Florida Cancer Specialists and Research Institute. So today, we are going to talk about functional foods and specifically their health benefits beyond just the basic nutrients that foods tend to provide. There we go. So just the agenda for today, we're going to talk about the definition of functional foods and the regulation of those foods. We're going to look at different types of functional foods, explore some of the special considerations, and we're going to talk about how to incorporate those functional foods into a healthy diet. So jumping in, functional foods, the term, was first coined in Japan in the early 1980s. And functional foods are generally considered to help prevent or decrease risk of disease. They do not prevent or cure diseases on their own and are not typically considered essential nutrients to the diet. Because the FDA does not provide a formal definition or category for functional foods, they are not regulated except related to their intended use, meaning the health claims on the food label are regulated. A group of independent scientists gather and weigh all relevant clinical data for any health claim submissions, and this process has improved the legitimacy and authenticity of those health claims. So when we say health claims, we're talking about things that you see on a label like cholesterol reduction or good for heart health, cancer prevention, the terms light or reduced. Those are all health claims. Now, there are 4 types of FDA-regulated claims that can be used on labels for functional food products. We'll go through them briefly because I think it's helpful to know what the claims mean so you can make informed decisions about different food products. So an authorized health claim deals with the relationship of the food to a disease or health-related condition. Authorized health claims must be supported by substantial scientific evidence, demonstrate clinical effectiveness, and/or significant scientific agreement among experts from accredited scientific bodies. So authorized health claims really have to be supported by strong scientific data. And you'll see things like low-fat diets, rich in fiber foods may reduce the risk of some types of cancer. So that's considered an authorized health claim. Qualified health claims on the surface look identical to authorized health claims. They also deal with the relationship of the food to a disease or health-related condition. But the qualified health claims are based on the totality of available scientific evidence. And the evidence for those claims does not have to be as strong or well established as for an authorized health claim. So what you might see instead on packaging or food marketing, supportive but not conclusive research shows that eating 1.5 ounces per day of walnuts as part of a low saturated fat and low cholesterol diet and not resulting in increased caloric intake may reduce the risk of coronary heart disease. You see the difference. The third type of health claim is a structure function claim, and this deals with how a nutrient might affect a structure or function in the body or an individual's well-being. Structure function claims are not disease claims. They cannot claim to treat, cure, or diagnose a disease. So these are claims that sound like calcium builds strong bones, protein helps build strong muscles, okay? And then lastly, the nutrient content claims are probably what we're the most familiar with on food packaging. And these deal with the amount of a nutrient in a food. Nutrient content claims are limited to nutrients with an established daily value recommendation. And so these will be things like low sodium, fat-free, high fiber, an excellent source of vitamin C that you'll see on the label. Some other examples of nutrient content claims that are regulated by the FDA: free, low, we mentioned light and reduced, and those can sometimes be red flags, the light or reduced. So if we look at this, something that is sugar-free is less than 0.5 grams per serving. Something that's sodium-free, it has to be less than 5 milligrams per serving. That's required in order to make that claim. Low is very similar. Low sodium has to be less than 140 milligrams per serving. Light and reduced get a little bit tricky. Light just means that it's 50% less than the original product. Reduced is just 25% less than the original product. So I'm not saying that those are bad things, but light and reduced do not automatically mean low or healthy, okay? They're less than the original, but that could still be a high salt or high sugar or high fat product. So the moral of this story is always look at the nutrition facts label on the back of the package, despite whatever health claim is being made on the front of the package. Check out the total calories, the saturated fat, the added sugar, the sodium, the fiber, the vitamins, and the serving size to make sure that you are making a good decision about the food product that you're purchasing. So defining functional food a little bit farther, most foods that contain nutrients are considered functional. Food can provide protein for muscle repair, carbs for energy, vitamins and minerals for cell function. Most nutritious foods are functional on some level to provide energy for sustaining life. But there are certain foods that provide benefits beyond that in chronic disease risk reduction and management. There's no universal definition for functional foods. The Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics defines them as whole foods, along with fortified, enriched, or enhanced foods that have a potentially beneficial effect on health when consumed as part of a varied diet on a regular basis at effective levels based on significant standards of evidence. So that's a mouthful, but if we break it down, essentially what the Academy's definition is saying is that these functional foods may provide some extra health benefits if you eat them as part of an already healthy diet, and if you eat them in the amounts that the scientific data shows provides those health benefits. The Institute of Food Technologists simply defines functional food as foods or food components that provide health benefits beyond basic nutrition. Many whole, unprocessed foods containing nutrients are functional, such as whole grains, which contain fiber, B vitamins, and phytochemicals, and have been shown to reduce the risk of cancer, heart disease, and diabetes. Functional foods are also those that are fortified, enriched, or enhanced to provide additional nutrients and health benefits. So let's define those different types of functional foods a little bit more. And it gets tricky. Hang with me, because these terms, when you go on Google, a lot of these terms are used interchangeably, even though they technically have different definitions. So fortified food, also referred to as enhanced, contain vitamins and minerals not originally found in that food, and they've been added in to enhance the nutrition profile and promote health. Enhanced foods can also include nutritionally enhanced food crops, So either by adding specific nutrients to fertilizer or through biotechnology for genetically modified organisms, also known as GMOs. Most corn, soybeans, and sugar beets are from GMO crops. Now, much of the reasoning behind GMOs is a higher yield from the crops, longer lasting produce without spoilage, and disease or pest resistant strains of crops, of different plants. There's a lot of controversy around GMOs. That's not what this session is for. That's for another day and another can of worms, so to speak. But just know they are lumped into that enhanced food group, okay? Enriched foods are foods that the nutrients were lost during food processing. So the nutrients were in the foods originally. The food processing techniques removed those nutrients, and then those nutrients were added back in, okay? Fortified foods can help provide nutrients that might be low or missing in your diet. Often they are nutrients that are difficult to get from a variety of foods. And fortification often serves as a public health initiative to address widespread nutrient deficiencies. So for example, it's hard to get vitamin D, adequate vitamin D from food. Most of us get vitamin D from sunshine. So vitamin D we need to help with calcium absorption to prevent osteoporosis. So beverages like milk and orange juice are fortified with it. Non-dairy milk substitutes are also fortified with vitamin D and calcium. Iodine is required for normal thyroid function, but is found in only small amounts of a handful of foods. And decades ago, there used to be a lot of iodine deficiency, goiter, the big lump you would see right on somebody's neck. So for decades, table salt has been fortified with iodine to prevent iodine deficiency and associated problems like goiter or birth defects. You might have heard the term plant sterols. They work in the small intestine by inhibiting absorption of cholesterol, and they've been growing in interest a lot. So you'll likely see those added to butter spreads and marketed as promoting healthy cholesterol levels. And finally, one last example of fortified foods is cereals, like just breakfast cereals. The B vitamin folic acid is necessary to prevent neural tube defects. And folic acid, we often find people deficient in folic acid. So it's now fortified. It's been fortified for years in breakfast cereals to minimize that risk of deficiency. Eggs are enriched with omega-3 fatty acids by feeding the hens flaxseed, which is high in omega-3 fatty acids. Thus, the eggs are higher in omega-3 fatty acids. Another example, kind of more classically enriched food, are enriched flour and enriched rice. So whole grains, whole wheat, is rich in B vitamins and iron, but the milling process of wheat flour to make white flour actually removes those vitamins and iron. So those enriched products have the B vitamins and the iron added back. The FDA regulates use of the term enriched, so foods labeled that way must contain specific amounts of those nutrients that are added back in. We mentioned a couple of times that a lot of your whole unprocessed natural foods are functional, and fruits and vegetables are the perfect example. They naturally contain compounds called phytonutrients or phytochemicals that have been shown to prevent or reduce diseases. So you can see in the table all those different colors, all the different plants that come in those colors. Those colors are created from the phytonutrients. So just to name a few, lycopene, it gives the red color to foods like tomatoes and watermelon. And lycopene has been shown to possibly reduce the risk of prostate, lung, and stomach cancer. Anthocyanin, the blue-purple color in berries, eggplants, and black plums, has been linked to decreased blood pressure, reduced risk of heart attacks, as well as reducing cancer risk. Beta carotene, responsible for the yellow or orange colors in carrots and squash, mangoes, and cantaloupe, gets converted to vitamin A, which can help prevent macular degeneration. And finally, isothiocyanate, found in green veggies like broccoli, Brussels sprouts, and cabbage, has been linked with cancer risk reduction. Some additional whole foods that are considered functional foods. Fermented foods are natural sources of probiotics or healthy bacteria, which promote digestion and gut health and benefit the immune system. Fermented foods include pickled vegetables, sauerkraut, kimchi, kombucha, and some yogurt. The fermenting process for yogurt creates those probiotics. Some yogurt, the probiotics are added in after pasteurization. So that would be more of a fortification classification. Wild fatty fish like salmon, sardines, mackerel, and tuna are naturally great sources of omega-3 fatty acids, which have anti-inflammatory properties shown to benefit heart health. Farmed fish, just of note, farmed fish are often fed a corn-based feed and don't contain the same high levels of omega-3s. So when possible, I would recommend trying to get wild fatty fish. Walnuts are another good source of omega-3s. And in addition to those omega-3s, walnuts contain vitamin E and magnesium, and regular intake has been shown to improve heart and brain health. And as I mentioned earlier, whole grains contain B vitamins, fiber, vitamin E, selenium. They've been shown to reduce inflammation, insulin resistance, and cholesterol levels, improve gut function, and reduce cancer risk. So these functional foods can really pack a punch. Now, the food itself is not the only factor in how much health benefit you are getting from those functional foods. So of course, the actual bioactive compound, the compound, the nutrient in the food, is the first consideration to provide those health benefits, but digestion, absorption, and metabolism all play a role in the resulting health benefits. So the number one thing to consider is your regular diet, the accompanying foods and beverages you eat. Is your diet a lot of fast food and you're relying on a specific ingredient from a functional food to solve your problems, right, and prevent disease, versus incorporating those functional foods into an already healthy diet? Your gut microbiome, we've talked a lot about gut microbiome in the past and how it plays a role in your overall health. The quantity of those functional foods, so how much of those functional foods you're eating, how often you're eating them, and just the health status of you as an individual, the presence of disease already, your genetics, your age. All of these things play a role in the health benefits that you may or may not reap by eating those functional foods. And just a brief comparison of functional foods to supplements. So when I say supplements, I'm talking about over-the-counter pills, vitamin, mineral pills, herbal pills, those traditional supplements. When we look at functional foods, we know they may reduce the risk of disease. We said they're not used for as disease treatment, at least on their own. The bioactive compound is mixed. It's found within a food, and the compounds, the nutrients within those foods all work together. They have a synergistic effect to provide more benefit for you. When we look at supplements, we know they're unregulated and the health claims do not have to be proven. They may or may not be marketed as disease treatment, and the bioactive compounds, the nutrients, are independent of food. You're taking a pill versus eating a food. And there actually have been a lot of studies that show that getting nutrients from a variety of foods, because of that synergistic effect, provides more health benefits than taking those nutrients separately in pill form. So just something to keep in mind. Other considerations when we're talking about functional foods, fortified or functional foods cannot override overall poor nutrition. Functional foods can fill in the gaps for those hard to obtain nutrients, but they shouldn't be the substitute for a healthy diet. In some extreme cases, there is the possibility of nutrient overdose with hyperfortification. We don't see this a lot in typical functional foods when you go to the grocery store, but especially it's possible that some fortified foods contain vitamin levels too high for kids and potentially dangerous in those situations, particularly zinc, vitamin A, and even vitamin E, because those can build up in your system. So it's probably a good idea to look for food labels that have 20 to 25% of the daily value for those nutrients. Adults can also overdose. It's not just kids. Adults can also overdose, especially if they are also taking high dose supplements of those same nutrients. Some functional foods are heavily processed and packaged. Just because they're functional and they contain a nutrient that may provide a health benefit does not mean that the food overall is healthy. So breakfast cereals are the perfect example. Breakfast cereals are functional foods. They've been fortified with those B vitamins, iron, sometimes they're fortified with calcium, but they're often very processed and very high in sugar. So just be wary that some fortified functional products can also contain excess added sugars, fat, sodium. So again, it's really important to check the overall food label. And then one more cautionary point: there is no such thing as a miracle food. At least if there is, we haven't found it yet. Marketing foods as a cure for disease is not based on scientific evidence. A lot of foods are promoted as superfoods, like some of the berries and broccoli. They are certainly nutrient rich, but one food cannot stand alone in supporting a healthy diet. You still need a variety, right? So how do we put this into practice? First, because we saw that so many natural, whole plant-based foods are functional, try to fill your plate with more whole foods: fruits, vegetables, whole grains, beans, nuts. Focus on a variety of color to get the most benefit from all those different phytochemicals. And if you've been with me before, I know you've seen these pictures before. You can use the My Plate method, which is USDA, the replacement for the Food Guide Pyramid. You can use the New American Plate, which was created by the American Institute of Cancer Research. They're super similar. The idea is smaller portions of animal protein, larger portions of your plate being whole, mostly unprocessed plant-based foods, right? We want to reduce highly processed foods, which are usually lower in nutrients and higher in sugar, salt, fat, and calories. And the addition of those fortified or enriched functional foods can be part of your healthy diet, especially in areas where you might be lacking, such as iron, calcium, and vitamin D.